What happens when a nation decides that the laws of nature are just another engineering challenge? China's latest megaproject have stunned the world, leaving American engineers speechless and rewriting the very definition of what's possible. Bridges soar where mountains once ruled. Trains fly across the earth faster than planes. Rivers change direction, deserts bloom, and even the world's biggest cities find themselves dwarfed by a new age of construction. This is a story of China's infrastructure revolution, where records tumble and the old rules no longer apply. Ready to see what the future really looks like? The fastest network on Earth. If you have ever waited for a delayed commuter train or watched as politicians argued about fixing potholes, it is hard to imagine what is happening right now on the other side of the world. In China, high-speed rail has gone from futuristic fantasy to everyday reality. The first time you see a Fuxinghao bullet train pull into a station, it looks like something out of a science fiction movie, a sleek, silver arrow that barely makes a sound as it glides to a stop, ready to swallow thousands of passengers and launch them across the country at speeds most Americans only see in a sports car. But the most staggering thing? This is just an ordinary Tuesday for hundreds of millions of people. China's high-speed rail network stretches for more than 40,000 kilometers, enough to lap the entire globe. You could board a train in Shanghai, doze off with a cup of green tea, and wake up in Beijing less than 5 hours later, after covering a distance roughly equal to New York to Atlanta. And it is not just the cities. Mid-sized towns and rural areas that once felt isolated now find themselves plugged into a national web of movement and opportunity. Entire regions are being reborn, fueled by the hum of steel wheels on track and the promise of never being more than a few hours from the economic heart of the nation. But what really sets China apart is not just raw numbers. It is how the country managed to build this network at a speed and scale the world has never seen before. The first major line opened just in 2008, connecting Beijing and Tianjin. Since then, new routes have appeared almost overnight. Whole mountain ranges have been tunneled through, rivers crossed, and dense cityscapes woven together in a tapestry of speed. The construction process itself is a marvel. While other countries hold endless public consultations and legal reviews, China's top-down planning means projects go from blueprint to reality in a matter of months, not decades. Fleets of cranes, armies of workers, and cutting-edge tunnel-boring machines swarm across the landscape. Sometimes entire sections of rail are prefabricated in factories, shipped to the site, and installed in record time. When workers needed to replace a busy section of track in downtown Beijing, the job was done, literally overnight, a feat so improbable it went viral around the world. Is it just about political willpower? Maybe, but there's more to it. The technology itself is world-class. Unlike early lines that depended on imported expertise, today's Chinese high-speed trains are homegrown. The Fuxinghao, for example, is the fastest regular passenger train in the world, clocking in at over 400 kilometers per hour. Yet it is not just about speed. Every aspect of the passenger experience has been designed for comfort: clean stations, digital ticketing, quiet rides, and even Wi-Fi in the middle of nowhere. Business travelers take meetings in first-class seats, families plan reunions around train schedules, and students return home for the holidays on tracks that seem to defy geography. How did this all happen so quickly, while the rest of the world seemed to be stuck in slow motion? The answer is as complex as it is fascinating. China saw high-speed rail not just as a transport solution, but as a way to unlock the country's economic potential. By shrinking travel times, they brought together labor markets, created new hubs of industry, and gave millions access to new jobs. Every kilometer of track is a catalyst for change, and the government's willingness to invest at a scale never seen before has paid off. Even the global pandemic could not slow the pace for long. Construction sites adapted, protocols changed, and within months the trains were running as usual. Of course, not everyone is convinced that this breakneck speed is without cost. Critics inside and outside China worry about long-term maintenance, environmental impact, and the huge debts racked up by local governments eager to build the next great line. There have been hiccups, including a few high-profile accidents and questions about ridership numbers in less populated regions. Still, the vast majority of lines operate at a profit, and the public's embrace of rail travel remains strong. Compare that to the United States, where the first high-speed rail project in California is still years from completion and billions over budget, with only a handful of miles to show for decades of promises. Why is it so hard for other countries to replicate this feat? It is not just about money or even political will. China's approach weaves together vision, scale, and an almost ruthless focus on execution. Environmental and social reviews are handled quickly and decisively. The legal system can clear obstacles that would tie up Western projects for years. Massive supply chains and in-house engineering talent mean China does not need to rely on foreign firms or imported technology. And once the green light is given, everyone involved knows the clock is ticking. In this environment, innovation is not just encouraged, it is required. Now, as the world watches, the next phase is already underway. China plans to connect neighboring countries in Southeast Asia and Central Asia, building high-speed links that could reshape an entire continent's economy. Every time a new record is broken, whether it is top speed, length of track, or passenger numbers, the gap between China and the rest of the world seems to grow wider. For many engineers in the United States and Europe, the reaction is part anxiety. Can anyone else catch up, or will China set the pace for the next century of transportation? What would it take for other countries to leap ahead? Is it even possible, or are the old models of infrastructure doomed to be left behind by a country that simply refuses to wait for permission? And what happens to the global balance of power when one nation can move its people and goods so efficiently? As China's high-speed rail network continues to expand, these are the questions that keep planners, politicians, and dreamers awake at night. But the story does not end here. Because if you think trains that fly across a continent are impressive, wait until you see what happens when China decides to build bridges that defy gravity itself. How do you create structures that span miles of open sea, stand against the strongest typhoons, and still finish construction years ahead of schedule? The answers will leave even the world's best engineers shaking their heads and wondering if maybe, just maybe, the old limits are finally gone for good. Building the impossible. It is one thing to move people at record speeds across flat land. It is another to look at a yawning chasm, a raging sea, or a mountain gorge and simply say, let's put a bridge there. For most of history, bridges have been symbols of human ambition, the triumph of teamwork over gravity and distance. But for engineers in China, a bridge is not just a way across an obstacle. It is a way to announce to the entire world that the impossible has a place on the construction calendar. In the last 20 years, China has become the undisputed champion of building bridges on a mind-boggling scale. Think of the Golden Gate Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge, icons in their own right, each one the pride of its era. Now imagine a country that did not just build one or two, but dozens of the world's longest, tallest, and most complex bridges, often in places where even drawing the blueprints would have seemed like madness just a generation ago. The numbers alone are staggering. China is now home to 8 of the world's 10 longest sea-crossing bridges. It has redefined what is possible, not by following the lead of older projects in Europe or America, but by writing entirely new rules. Consider the Hong Kong's Macau Bridge, which stretches a jaw-dropping 55 kilometers, linking 3 of the region's most important cities. This structure is so vast that it disappears into the horizon, part bridge, part tunnel, and part artificial island, built to withstand not just the pounding of typhoons, but the relentless test of time. Engineers face challenges here that would have sent most teams home in defeat. The tunnel beneath the Lingding-Yang Strait required threading together 33 massive segments, each one as tall as a building, under the pressure of surging tides and shifting earth. The margin for error was measured in millimeters, not meters. There were days when a single storm could set back weeks of work, and nights when every passing ship or shift in the seabed had to be accounted for. Failure was not just possible, it was expected. And yet, the bridge stands. But the story of China's bridge-building obsession does not begin or end in the Pearl River Delta. Travel inland, and you will find suspension bridges that hang between cliffs high enough to make a seasoned climber's knees buckle. The Bepanjing Bridge, for example, soars over 1,000 feet above a deep river gorge. If you were to stand on the deck and look down, the ground below seems to belong to another world. Construction teams work in some of the most dangerous and remote conditions on Earth, battling wind, fog, and logistical nightmares. And yet, these bridges did not take decades to complete. Some were finished in just a few years, thanks to relentless innovation, round-the-clock work, and an almost fanatical commitment to finishing on schedule. How did China leap so far ahead in bridge construction? It is partly about scale, but it is also about mindset. In many Western countries, bridge projects can be held up for years by regulatory reviews, lawsuits, and battles over funding. In China, decisions are made quickly, and once the order is given, a vast machine swings into action. Materials, workers, engineers, and even entire factories are redirected to the site. Local authorities coordinate with central government agencies, ensuring that nothing is left to chance. It is a system that values speed and result above all else, a double-edged sword that delivers miracles, but not without controversy. And yet, the technology is undeniably world-class. China has developed pivoting bridge segments that can be rotated and put into place in a matter of hours. In Hebei, the Pingshan Bridge was turned 90 degrees and joined to the main structure in less than an hour and a half, a process that used to require weeks of careful alignment. This is not just efficiency for its own sake. It is a way to minimize traffic disruption, cut costs, and deliver results at a speed that makes headlines across the globe. There are risks, of course. Building so fast and on such a scale comes with challenges that do not always make it into the promotional videos. Engineers must constantly monitor for unexpected settlement, corrosion, and stress. Innovations like composite materials, advanced anti-corrosion coatings, and seismic isolation systems are now standard features, not luxuries. But even the critics have to admit, so far, these bridges are holding up. Many have survived monster storms, massive earthquakes, and far more traffic than anyone expected. Some of the skepticism comes from overseas. American and European engineers have publicly questioned whether these projects can really last a century or if they will turn out to be expensive showpieces. On social media, debates rage over whether Chinese bridges are built to impress or to endure. The answer, it turns out, is both. The bridges do not just serve practical needs. They are statements of ambition, visible proof that China is no longer content to play catch-up, but is determined to lead. For many Chinese citizens, the transformation is personal. Entire regions that once relied on ferries or perilous mountain roads now have a lifeline to the outside world. Travel times that once stretched into days have shrunk to hours. Businesses, families, and cultures have been knitted together with steel and concrete. In rainy season, bridges mean safety. In festival season, they mean a reunion with loved ones. These are not just engineering projects. They are the backbone of a country on the move. But if you ask the workers on site, the story is one of constant problem-solving. Teams work through the night to lay cables, pour concrete, and adjust massive segments that weigh thousands of tons. Specialized barges, cranes, and even robots are deployed to do the jobs that once took armies of men. It is a ballet of logistics and muscle, one that demands absolute focus. When typhoons threaten, entire crews are evacuated and then rush back in as soon as the skies clear. Every challenge met and every record broken only fuels the drive to do more, to build bigger, and to reach further. What happens when this drive runs into the limits of nature itself? What do you do when the only way forward is through, not around, a mountain or a river? China's answer is always the same: build, innovate, and refuse to back down from a challenge. The bridges of China are not just structures. They are monuments to a national philosophy that sees problems as opportunities and obstacles as invitations. As the rest of the world looks on, the question becomes, is this sustainable? Can other nations learn from China's example, or is this pace only possible in a system with China's unique blend of authority and ambition? What happens when the next great test arrives? A stronger earthquake, a changing climate, or even the need for repairs on a scale that nobody has faced before? Will these marvels still stand tall, or will the next generation have to start from scratch? For now, the answer seems to be written in steel and concrete, in the shadows cast by bridges that touch the clouds and span the sea. China's bridge builders are already moving on to the next project, the next challenge, the next record to break. And as they do, the world watches, not just with envy, but with a sense of awe and maybe even a touch of fear. If China can build these wonders so quickly, what will they think of next? The story of China's megaprojects is far from over. Next up, water. If you think bridges and railways are impressive, just wait until you see how China is taming its rivers, conquering its deserts, and building the world's largest hydropower stations, all while setting new records for speed, scale, and ambition. How do you reroute a river, move a mountain, or generate enough electricity to power a continent? The answers might just redefine the future of engineering itself. Taming nature. In a country as vast and unpredictable as China, water has always been both a blessing and a curse. Ancient emperors sent armies to dig canals and raise levees. Farmers prayed for rain and dreaded the floods that could sweep away a year's work in a single night. For centuries, the rivers of China have been the veins of its civilization, sometimes nurturing, often furious, and always demanding respect. But in the modern era, Chinese engineers are not just at the mercy of their waterways. They are rewriting the rules of what is possible, turning mighty rivers and rugged mountains into allies rather than adversaries. When you think of water engineering, you might imagine the Hoover Dam or the Panama Canal. These were once the ultimate flexes of human ingenuity. For decades, the Hoover Dam was the undisputed titan, taming the wild Colorado River and powering the American Southwest. In recent years, however, China has leapt beyond even these legends, constructing a new generation of water projects so vast, so complex, and so ambitious that they make the old icons look almost quaint by comparison. At the heart of China's water revolution lies the Baihetan hydropower station. This is not just a dam. It is a cathedral of concrete and steel, a monument to an idea as old as civilization itself. That with enough determination and brainpower, nature can be bent to serve the needs of millions. The Baihetan project stretches across the raging Jinsha River, a tributary of the legendary Yangtze. The statistics alone are hard to process. Imagine a network of underground chambers longer than 200 kilometers, enough to fit hundreds of airplanes or entire skyscrapers. The main cavern is so enormous that 13 Boeing 737 jets could park inside, nose to tail, with room to spare. But size is not the only headline. Baihetan's generators churn out 3 times the electricity of the Hoover Dam, lighting up cities, factories, and homes hundreds of miles away. And this is not a one-off miracle. China has built a whole fleet of megadams, each one setting new record for output, efficiency, and sheer audacity. The Three Gorges Dam, for example, is visible from space and generates more power than many countries produce in a year. Yet it is not only about raw power. Water management in China means controlling floods, irrigating farms, supplying cities, and defending against the chaos of climate change. That is why engineers are constantly innovating, creating smart reservoirs that respond to rainfall in real time, and canals that snake across the countryside, carrying life-giving water to parched regions. The South-to-North Water Transfer Project is a case in point. It is one of the most ambitious infrastructure schemes on Earth, designed to move massive volumes of water from the rain-soaked south to the arid north, where Beijing and other megacities thirst for every drop. This is not just a pipeline. It is a system of rivers, tunnels, and channels, cutting through mountains and crossing valleys, an artificial river hundreds of miles long. So, how do Chinese engineers achieve these feats? Part of the answer lies in a philosophy that fuses ancient wisdom with modern science. The Yellow River, known as China's sorrow for its history of catastrophic floods, is now regulated by a series of modern dams and spillways, each one designed using the latest hydrological modeling. But look closer, and you will find echoes of methods that go back to the earliest dynasties, earthwork shaped to deflect the force of floodwaters, canals lined with reeds to filter silt, and even careful attention to the spiritual importance of keeping water in balance. Of course, the challenges are as monumental as the projects themselves. China's geography throws every obstacle in the book at its engineers. Earthquakes threaten dam sites, landslides block tunnels, and monsoon rains can turn construction sites into mud pits overnight. To solve these problems, Chinese teams have developed a suite of new technologies. Drones scan remote valleys for the best routes. Robots crawl into dangerous tunnels to take measurements. Computer models run thousands of scenarios, predicting what might happen if a levee fails or a storm unleashes more water than expected. It is a mix of grit and digital wizardry, a constant dance with nature where even a single misstep could spell disaster. But the greatest test of all is the human element. Moving rivers, building dams, and flooding valleys means changing lives on colossal scale. Entire towns have been relocated. Ancient villages, some with thousands of years of history, have vanished beneath the waters, their residents resettled in new cities built from scratch. The debates over these moves are fierce and emotional. Critics warn about lost heritage, environmental costs, and the risks of putting so much trust in concrete. Supporters point to clean energy, economic growth, and a level of water security that China has never known before. What cannot be denied is that these water megaprojects have changed the nation. During the floods of recent years, it was the reservoirs and spillways that protected millions from disaster. When drought struck, the canals delivered relief. And as China's population continues to grow and cities swell to megacity status, the need for reliable water and power only becomes more urgent. The engineering feats along the Yangtze, the Jinsho, and the Yellow River have become more than headlines. They are the backbone of the modern Chinese state, a guarantee that progress will not be washed away by the next great storm. But the story is not all about giant dams. Across China, you can find smaller, equally daring experiments. In the deserts of Xinjiang, water is being piped hundreds of miles to create new oases, turning barren sand into green farmland. In the southern mountains, hydroelectric stations are tucked into narrow gorges, using every drop of falling water to power local communities. Even in the crowded neighborhoods of Beijing and Shanghai, water-saving systems are being rolled out, capturing rain on rooftops and filtering it for reuse. This is not just showy mega infrastructure. It is a relentless push for innovation at every level. So, what is the ultimate lesson from China's water engineering revolution? It is that nature can be tamed, but never fully controlled. The rivers still rise, the rains still fall, and the work is never finished. Every dam, every canal, every smart reservoir is both a triumph and a challenge, an ongoing battle against entropy and chaos. The next great flood or drought will not wait for politicians or committees. It will test the limits of what even the best engineers can achieve. And that is why the work continues, with new plans, new technologies, and an ever-deepening resolve. What comes next is anyone's guess. Will China's megaproject inspire other nations to dream bigger, or will they serve as cautionary tales about the risks of playing God with rivers? Can the drive for progress outpace the forces of nature? How long can the delicate balance between power and preservation be maintained before something gives way? The answers remain to be written in water and stone, in the rising skylines and the shifting tides of a nation determined to shape its own destiny. The future of infrastructure is not just about bridges or railways or even dams. It is about vision, the willingness to imagine a world where obstacles become stepping stones, and where each new challenge is met with courage, curiosity, and a refusal to accept impossible as an answer. In China, that future is already under construction. And as each new project rises from the ground or flows through a mountain, the world is left to wonder, what boundary will they push next, and who will be bold enough to follow? Lastly, we have energy. If you think water is a challenge, wait until you see how China is revolutionizing the way nations generate, store, and use power on a scale that defies the imagination. Can the world keep up with China's pace? Or is this the moment when East truly overtakes West in the race for the 21st century? Why for the future? In the world's new energy arms race, China is not just keeping pace. It is sprinting ahead while many rivals are still tying their shoes. While much of the world debates how to balance growth with climate responsibility, China is already building the backbone of a green revolution. The size, speed, and ambition of these energy projects leave foreign engineers struggling to comprehend how quickly the future is arriving. Start with the scale. China has become the world's largest producer of solar and wind energy by a mind-boggling margin. Entire deserts are now home to seas of shimmering solar panels that stretch as far as the eye can see. Wind farms in Inner Mongolia and along the eastern coast generate enough electricity to power cities larger than many nations. And it is not just about making headlines with records. China is investing in battery storage, ultra-high voltage transmission lines, and smart grids that automatically adapt to shifts in demand. The real story is how all these parts fit together. Solar farms in the west send electricity over thousands of kilometers to the east, where most of the population lives. Giant wind farms in the north are linked into a national grid that can reroute power at lightning speed to wherever it is needed most. In cities, skyscrapers now sport rooftop solar arrays and intelligent meters. The technology is not a future promise. It is already woven into daily life. Then there are the outlandish projects that sound almost like science fiction. China is experimenting with floating solar farms, placing solar panels on lakes and reservoirs to reduce evaporation and double up on energy production. There are pilot programs for transmitting electricity wirelessly over long distances. Even in deep space, Chinese scientists have sketched plans for orbiting solar stations that would beam power back to Earth. This commitment to energy infrastructure is not just about keeping the lights on. It is about redefining what a country can achieve when it mobilizes for change on a massive scale. China is building entire new cities designed from the ground up to be energy efficient. Electric vehicles are everywhere, supported by the world's largest charging network. High-speed rail runs not on fossil fuels but on clean, renewable electricity. All of this has not come without cost or controversy. The pace of change means mistakes are made and lessons are learned the hard way. Some rural areas have struggled with the loss of traditional landscapes. Others worry about what happens when so much power is centralized. But for now, the momentum is undeniable. Each new project builds on the last, and the country's engineers are learning faster than ever before. What does this mean for the rest of the world? In some places, there is awe. In others, concern, even envy. International delegations tour China's megafactories and wind farms, hoping to import ideas or spark their own revolutions back home. Meanwhile, China is exporting its infrastructure know-how to dozens of other countries, building power plants, transmission lines, and energy grid from Africa to South America. If there is a single lesson in China's energy transformation, it is this. Progress is possible when ambition meets action and when the whole system works toward a shared vision. The old rules do not apply here. The only constant is change, and the only limit is imagination. So what will come next? Will we see solar satellites, city-sized battery farms, or something even more surprising? For now, the world can only watch as China keeps flipping the switch on a future no one saw coming, and then moves on to build the next one. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through China's era of megaprojects. Whether it is high-speed trains, sea-spanning bridges, or energy grids that light up entire continents, one thing is clear. The world of infrastructure is changing fast, and China is determined to lead the way. What do you think? Will other countries ever catch up, or are we just seeing the start of an even bigger race? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like and subscribe for more, and stay tuned as we keep chasing the world's next big leap forward. See you in the next one.